Discuss. I'm joined by Northern Territory Senator Malarndirri McCarthy and senior writer at The Age and Sydney Morning Herald, Jessica Irvine. Ladies, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Senator, to you first of all, we're going to be speaking to the Finance Minister a little bit later on. Do you get why he's so angry?
Well, that's his opinion, and I'll tell you mine, Karl, and my opinion is this, that we have way too many deaths in custody, way too many people incarcerated in terms of First Nations people, and this was an opportunity by leaders across Australia, Aboriginal leaders, non-Aboriginal leaders, not politicians. There were people who came together, pulled all sorts of people together. They had police involved in Queensland, for example, giving out masks. They had hand sanitisers. People in many of these marches were trying to keep their distance. This issue of First Nations people dying in custody is what is reckless in this country and irresponsible. And that's where this focus was all about.
So what would you say then to Matthias?
I would say that the Prime Minister has been able to pull together a national cabinet to deal with the pandemic in this country in terms of COVID-19. Well, I would say to Matthias Cormann and the Prime Minister, pull together a national cabinet to reduce the high rates of incarceration and Aboriginal deaths in custody.
Do you get, Malarndirri, that everyone has abided by these laws? Businesses have gone to the walls because of these restrictions. And to see these protests out on the street in violation of those laws was incredibly infuriating for some.
Well, let's correct the record. The New South Wales situation was that the Supreme Court wouldn't allow it. However, a Court of Appeal did. Now, that is an Australian law. And what occurred in the other states, and certainly in the Northern Territory and Darwin, where I attended that one, there was one in Alice Springs, people were very sensible, were very mindful. But this issue resonates far deeper than any other issue in Australia and around the world, Karl, and we need to be open to that, and hearts need to move very quickly to the point that there is incredible change in this country. It began with the drought, it then went to the bushfires, it then went to COVID-19. Well, when there is change occurring, I would say to people, it's time to get on board or get out of the way.
Jess, many of these demonstrators did ignore requests to wear masks, and now there's the threat of this second wave of the virus. Should our state leaders have been more decisive to stop them going ahead in the first place, or do you side with Malarndirri?
I do side with the Senator. I think this is such an important issue that it is worth taking some risk, but it is a risk. I mean, and this is what we're really worried about with a second wave. If we do start to see, you know, community transmission of this virus again, that will lead us to have to shut down the economy again. That will lead to more businesses going under. You know, this is what we're trying to avoid. But you know, we're allowed to go to the pub. We're talking about reopening footy. I think it's more important at this stage when we are reopening things like this that we let people exercise their democratic rights to free speech.
I can't disagree with you both more. I get the need to protest, and I'm obviously not a First Nation person, but we have these rules in place to protect our society from this awful virus. We've done the right thing. We can't allow a protest right now. Protest in a couple of months when we've got this thing under control. Malarndirri, it's irresponsible, isn't it?
What's irresponsible is that this country is not listening to the voices of First Nations people. What's irresponsible is that the First Nations people and those who support the movement are being blamed unfairly. Now, let's have a look at the statistics in terms of COVID-19, Karl. Over 1 million tests across the country, less than 1% have experienced COVID. Now, we know we have to be careful. It's actually Aboriginal leaders who've led the way to make sure in these communities that they didn't get it.
You have supported the closure of the borders in the Northern Territory.
Absolutely, that's what I'm saying, that it's Aboriginal leaders who've pushed the way, the Aboriginal land councils across the Northern Territory, the Aboriginal community-controlled health organisations. Pat Turner has led the way. I mean, we're not silly people. This has been thoroughly organised, both from the rallies point of view, but also in terms of dealing with the COVID-19, and we know that we have to be sensible. But come on, Karl, seriously, we're 4 months into this, and if we don't as a country feel confident in the way that we're trying to handle this pandemic, when will we?